Well, everyone, we're back. We had a wonderful presentation earlier by Madeline, who's in charge of the Olmsted Gardens here at the Conservancy in Buffalo that they're reshaping. She did a terrific job. Thank you, Madeline, for doing that.
Did that come over the Zoom?
It did. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
However, we didn't record it, but nonetheless, we're recording now.
Okay.
And it's my pleasure to introduce Jolene Adams. And Jolene spoke with us last year, maybe the year before. Jolene, you were kind enough to help us out. Jolene is the past president for the American Rose Society. And she's a master Rosarian, which is quite an accomplishment, as well as a horticulture judge, and very accomplished. She gives speaking engagements all over the country, written articles, etc., and very, very accomplished. So we're thrilled tonight to have Jolene join us. Let's give her a round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Joelene, I know that you live out west, and we got
Yes.
a little of your weather. Things have been beautiful in Buffalo.
Well, that's good, because where I'm living right now, it is cold. It's about 64. So for Californians, that's really cold. And it's just misty, drizzly.
Oh, well, this is February and it doesn't feel like it to us. It's probably, I think it pushed 60 today, right?
Yeah. 61.
61, and we all want to get out there and garden.
Yeah,
but
I just finished my pruning this morning.
Jolene, welcome.
Thank you.
Get out of your way. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about landscaping with roses. It's no different than gardening with roses, except for the appearance of the final result. So the main questions you want to ask yourself: why are you even growing roses? Now, some of the answers that I get is, I just enjoy it. I love them. I want to cut some flowers for the house on special occasions and to take to church. Or I'm an exhibitor, so I'm interested in rose shows. Or I just like to collect, and I'm focusing on polyanthus or whatever I like to collect. Or I'm trying to become an amateur hybridizer. Or I'm interested in landscaping. I'm not interested in landscaping, but I know how to do it, having been married to one. So let's see what this is all about. It's about rose beds versus rose gardens. A couple of good quotes here. Value of the rose is in the glory of its individual flowers. Or there's a great loss to the flower garden from the usual way of growing the rose as a thing apart from everything else. We'll see as we go along what these guys were talking about. This is a rose bed. Isn't it exciting? You can see that a bed, and this was from the Atlanta National Convention, is functional. This is where the exhibitors grow their roses, but this isn't a rose garden. This is a bed of roses between strips of grass, etc. On the other hand, this is a landscape. Landscapes are prominently featuring the roses. The roses can be neatly manicured. The landscape can be manicured, or it can be shaggy and just whatever happens in that particular garden. They can be more restrained or tight or just overflowing, abundanza of roses. This is basically a rustic country garden. This is an option. Yes, there's grass. This person lives on Long Island. They have grass. But they also have a landscape. And you will notice there's harmony of color in this landscape. Everything blends in nicely. There's a smattering of light yellow, medium yellow, whites, etc. And the greens are all tones, nothing jarring. Your eye, as you come into this garden, it just kind of flows around and it sees everything. This is another interesting garden. It's out in the country here in Northern California. The woman who owns the property has gone absolutely bonkers with gardening, and she's got roses wherever she can fit them into everything else on the property. Down in the horse pastures, behind the fences, around the house, and she's added garden features like this little staircase going up to the next level. Yes, the garden is in terraces, but you wouldn't know it because the plants fill up the landscape. You can't see the terraces, but the steps lead up to the next level. This one is nicely done. And I think I've lost my place. Well, let's see. We'll keep on going. This is nicely done and also shows the rhythm that we're looking for. Your eye can go from one side to the other, and it's very impressive. It keeps going, and yet there are individual rose bushes in there of all types, along with the various other plants that this garden owner loves. There's variety, there's harmony of color. You'll notice the touch of red at the bottom, and then over at the side, there's another little red something or other peeking through. Whatever you happen to like will always fit well with roses. Roses. This isn't exactly a landscape. This is an exhibitor's garden here in Northern California. All of his exhibition roses are in pots.
Jolene?
Yes.
Jolene?
Yes.
Can you hold up for one second? We lost you for a second. I think our internet is a beautiful.
Oh, they're all in pots.
Yeah, these are all in pots.
Wow.
Yeah.
Proceed.
We're good.
Proceed.
Okay. Now, this is not landscaped, okay? This exhibitor has his roses in pots because he's living on a vineyard, okay, that belongs to his mother. So there's not a lot of room. He's got a little backyard behind his house, and then the vines start marching down the hill. They can't put roses down there, so he has them up here where he can take care of them. It's a little bit different. Now this one is nice. The large gardens are usually broken up into smaller parts or rooms as you move around the property. Here you've got roses cascading around a garden shed, basically, If you go through that little path, you will find tools, etc. There's a window in the back. You can see out onto the other side, and roses tumbling over the top of the shed and growing in front. And again, you see a flow. Your eye can go from one side to the other because there's a curve up there. There are little mounds down here, and the colors are nice. And again, we see pinks, light pinks, whites, and occasionally a dark one here and there, which catches your attention. This is ballerina on one side and candy cane on the other. And the focal point is the bird bath, which has rose petals in it. It's a point of interest in the garden. As you're going through the garden and looking at the roses, you're going to see little things, a well-landscaped garden, something for you to look at and think about as you go along. And again, continuity of color, of shapes, and the flow of the roses up one side and down the other. This is just the corner of a porch for one of these homes. And you can see the hydrangea and other things. And she's got pots where she's starting roses and chairs, tables, etc. And in the distance, you can see more bushes of roses on the other side going off into, you might say, into the future. Roses combine very beautifully with a wide variety of other plants in a mixed garden offering. Here you can see you've got stocks, some columbines, hot lips, things, larkspur, and other things in the background that I can't see that well because I'm old. Anyway, it's a mixed garden offering many colors and a lot of textures. You've got fat leaves, you've got thin columns, you've got broad leaves, you've got skinny, slender things jutting up. And notice in the bed with the birdhouse, you'll see spiky plants going up, but roses also going up, going up, going up. And then fronting it, mound, mound, mound. And then coming over here closer to us, there's another area that has been dedicated to roses and a few other plants. Mound, 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 and the colors flow. That's good landscape. This one is really nice. You have anything and everything that you can work with. You've got another thing of interest with the bird bath inside of another column. Okay. You've got stock, you've got columbine, you've got hollyhocks, you've got nasturtiums running along the ground, and roses, roses, roses. Really nice one. Yep. For landscaping, you have to stick with some principles of design. In a rose landscape, you want natural patterns. That means not a square, not a bed, okay? Rounded, flowing, natural patterns, just like nature. And you want the design to be unified so that you see repetitive, the same things over and over. Talls and shorts, pinks and whites, here and there. Make it simple, make it easy for you to take care of. You can even have just bark inside of it. And your ground covers and etc. that are growing along with the roses will green it up for you. You want to emphasize the harmony of the colors, but also the contrast of the different shapes of the plants, whether they're slender and going straight up, or they're broad and going sideways. And always keep proportion and scale in mind. If you've got tall hollyhocks against the fence, you could put a climbing rose in there. If you've got short roses and other smaller, like snapdragons, you wouldn't want to put a big tall thing in there. You want proportion and scale. Okay, this one is layered. You've got the green, bushy, strappy plants in front, and then it starts with a short white rose, moving off to the side, another white rose, in front pink, red going up the side of the house, and I've chopped off the pink ones on the left-hand side. Sorry about that. This is a natural pattern. It's a wave form going around the side of this particular house. And the garden, again, flows with color. You've got this dramatic hot pink at the bottom, and then a lighter medium pink, and then going into pinks and whites and pinks and whites as you curve around the side of that house. And the climbing roses up and over that side fence carry the color also. Strappy leaved plants, strappy leaved plants, strappy leaved plants, and then bush with flatter leaves. Again, same house, different side. This is demonstrating a very soft effect. Mostly pink and white. You don't see yellows, you don't see reds, you don't see orange roses or purples. The palette is soft. Along the front of this bunch of roses, strappy leaves that are bending down, very curved, very soft. It's a very soothing part of the landscape. And towards the trees, slightly taller bushes, but in the same color palette. This particular view on this house is harmony and contrast all at the same time. You've got the strappy plants along the front, and then some little mounded bushes, and then a taller bush, a tree here, a tree peeking in from the side, startling crop of red roses. We hadn't seen that, but then a white climbing rose draping down over the porch, bringing back the curves of the tree branches, the curves of the climber. Harmony. Here we see interesting garden structures. This particular gardener has, I don't even know what it is. It looks like a trellis to me, but why it's got those boards where you can trip and fall, I don't know. Unless it's for stepping up onto a terrace, which it might be. This was not my photo, it was sent to me. But structures can be placed in the garden. We've seen a couple of bird baths. We've seen a couple of vases. We're going to see a few more structures. They're points of interest. They're things to look at. Here we have the fence along the side of the yard. Gates, and this is the gate to the driveway or coming in from the driveway, can be festooned with your roses so that you don't see the house on the other side or you don't see the driveway from the yard. Either way, you enclose your garden and the fence more or less is obscured if you so desire. Fences will provide privacy, they'll provide verticality. The roses that go on the fence are reaching up. Here is part of the landscape going towards a swimming pool. In the upper corner, you'll see a little blue patch of water. And then that trellis that we were looking at in the far side, way back there. Delphiniums, purple all of a sudden, but it goes well with the hot pinks in the front, lighter pinks behind, and then white cascading climbers again. And the foliage matches. In one corner, you have small oval leaves. In the other corner, you've got the strappy ones, and then rising up out of them, fringed leaves. Something to look at, texture, contrast. Pathways, that's another feature. They will provide links from one area of the garden to the next area of the garden. This particular pathway, you walk in and here's a little sitting area, and you go out the other side to the other side of this lovely pink climber, which is, by the way, Haiti Road pink. This is from the south. Very nicely done. Intriguing. It makes you want to go in there and walk through to see what's on the other side. Accents. You want to put something in the garden to take your eye away from the landscaping for a moment. It's an accent, like the table and chairs in the middle of the lawn. Like this bridge over the little goldfish pond that they've got there. Goldfish pond didn't need a bridge, but the bridge adds something to the garden, to the landscape. And again, notice the curvature of the bridge, the curvature of the curbing around that rose garden, continuing on the other side. Harmony, contrast is the strappy-leaved water plants. You would call this a accidental garden vignette. You're walking along through this garden and all of a sudden there's this little opening and you can go in and sit down, have a cup of tea, read a book, visit with a friend, or go on your way. It's just a nook in the garden and nicely covered with shorter roses going towards the back, getting taller and taller, coming back around. Nice flow. Everything is round, round, round. Yay, the garden gates. You have to do something with your gates. Yes, people have to come in and out. This gate goes to the last gate at the end of the driveway. This is a walkway down the side. So the gentleman put climbing roses, and you'll notice that the roses are in a spot that is sloped up. Look at the fence, so much higher than the top of the arch down here at the walkway. This is a terraced slope, but the roses are disguising the fact that it's terraced. You're just seeing the flow of color, the pinks and the whites, and the tall shrubs at the back. Lovely little climber going up over the top of the arch, and it leads you on out to the driveway. Here's another view. The neighbor's house is on the other side of the fence, and the fence, nice wooden fence, has climbing roses on it to bring your interest away from the neighbor's house and into the garden. It's got texture. Look at the swale. That's all the lumpy rocks. It's almost like it's going to be filled with water any minute now. Probably has never seen water in its life, but it looks like it could be a riverbed. And the curve accents the fence and the roses. And again, the harmony of the colors, the pinks, the lemony yellows, the whites, and then an abrupt, wow, bright pink. Curves, curves, curves. With this one, this is another, well, oh, proportion and scale, yeah. Okay, we're going around the corner in this one. It's very tight. You will see the rocky swale going along the side and then the brickwork that makes a bed, and the bed has tall climbers and flowers and strappy plants in it. But your view goes down that walkway to the pink shrub rose, the white one, that's Cornelia, the other pink hybrid teas, and a distant drums right on the edge of the screen. And you're wondering what's around the corner. Accents. You're walking along this one and you look off to the side and there's a jug. Big pot, doesn't have anything in it. It's just a big pot, but it's interesting. And it's white with gray. And it fits very well in this particular edge of the garden where you've got the pinks and more pinks and more pinks and some yellow iris and then reds running through. It's white. It draws your eye. And you've got your strappy leaved plants and some fluffy plants. I don't know what those are because it's not my garden, but it was interesting. And this particular gardener does not have bricks along the side of her walkway. She's got stones, which make another element to be noticed. Stones have shape and texture and color. Here's another garden whimsy. You can have a chair sitting in the middle of the garden, and here's a Gertrude Jekyll peeking right through the slats of the chair. An old watering can. You can have a box with a cover that's slightly ajar and maybe sedum or another succulent flowing out of it. Anything to make interest in the garden, to draw your attention. These are accidental garden vignettes. In the landscaping trade, that's what they're called. I call it an old wooden chair with a tin sprinkling can on it. Nice rose though. So why would you grow roses in containers? Well, because they're part of landscaping also. Containers are easy to move around and they can fit into small areas. You can tuck a container into a rose garden or into your landscape, and you can have other plants either disguising the fact it's a container or harmonizing with it to show off the container. They can add color spots. You can pick up a container and walk around the corner and put it someplace else. You're going to have a tea party on the patio, gather up 2 or 3 nice containers with roses or other plants and make a little vignette on your patio. If you've just purchased a rose and you're not sure how it's going to do in your climate, you might not want to put it into your garden, put it into a pot first and give it a year and see how it does in your climate. You can move that pot around and find just the place where that rose would fit. After you've seen it bloom, know what its color characteristics are and the shape of the full plant as it grows. And sometimes we put our roses in pots because it's too soon to put them in the ground. We've still got snow or frost coming up. Or sometimes you just don't have any more room in the ground. You've got so many roses and you went out and bought more and put them in pots. If you do pot, you must consider the space, the soil you're going to use, the light that the pots will get, what nutrients you're going to have to add, how you're going to get moisture to them, if they're going to drain or not. The color and the decor and style of the pot is going to be part of the garden. If you have to winterize, what are you going to do with your pots? And then physically, can you handle all those pots? Can you pick them up and move them yourself, or are you going to have someone come and help? And if you're going to pot, what kind? You've got terracotta pots, plastic pots, wood pots, concrete, pulp, resin, metal, troughs and barrels, or just something you made up, like you can use an old birdhouse and have the rose coming out the hole that the bird would have jumped in. It's a pot. These are terracotta. They're made of clay. They're baked. These are plastic pots and they look like it, but they're lightweight and easy to move around. Wooden pots, these can be very decorative or just old wine barrels, whatever. Wood is good. It will allow excess water to drain out so you won't drown your potted rose. But within 10 years, they usually have rotted out. So you might have to repot at that time or decide on something else. Ceramics, these are usually pretty pricey, and they're pretty and they're usually small. So they would be, you know, for the side of the patio or up on a bench or a whimsy in the garden. Concrete. Yes, people do make concrete pots. They're very easy if you want to make them yourself. You just dig a hole, usually in well, not in clay, but in a sandy loam that'll hold the shape that you want. The one on the top right was made that way. That's why it looks kind of lumpy on the outside, because that's the way the dirt was in the hole. The lady that made this poured concrete into the hole, and then she took a large salad bowl, stainless steel, and just pushed it down in and left it there until the concrete set. Then she took the salad bowl out because it slid around really easily, and she dug up the pot, washed it off, and she's got a pot. Oh, she did put a hole in the pot before it set up, so it did drain. But it was interesting. She also made the two rectangular pots at the bottom. I thought that rose and leaf design was interesting. She used fabric, cut it to the shape she wanted, and then put the cement on top of it and textured it a bit. And then just before it was dried, she draped it over the edge of the pot so it was set. But then she's artistic and I'm not. Pulp pots, yep, looks just like a pulp pot. This is what you usually get at the nursery, and you bring the potted rose home, and you're trying to figure out where you're going to plant it, or if you're going to repot it this winter, or what's going to happen. The only really good thing I can say about the pulp pots is you'll always know if the rose is dry. Otherwise, it's always going to show that the pot itself is damp from your irrigation system. These are resin pots. They're lightweight, foamy. They do have holes in the bottom and sometimes on the sides. They're decoratives. They're easy to move around. Lightweight. They do well with the smaller roses. They're a little bit too light if you're going to put like a floribunda in the pot. Then you want a bigger pot. And this one is metal, and it is expensive. And I don't often see anything like this in a garden. I usually see it in the hallway with an umbrella stuck in it. I think it's made for umbrellas and canes, but it was sitting in the garden department at the hardware store, so I took a picture of it. Roses enjoy pots. This is Fletcher Derrick's home in Charleston, South Carolina. I went back to speak to them several years ago when I was still traveling, and we just had to see his house because he was a great exhibitor in the Carolina district. All of his roses are in pots. He lives in one of those, in the deep South, they call them the shotgun house. where if you open the front door and open the back door, you can see all the way down the hallway. And the rooms are off to the side. It's a 2-story shotgun and a very narrow lot. So he's got pots lining the side of his house. This is his garage, so they can't go in there. And down the side of that garage and up the other side of his house, and pots in the front because he's got like 10 feet from the sidewalk. Not enough for a real bed. People would get stabbed by the thorns. So he's got pots of miniatures. These are some more pots that he has in his garden. And we say again, roses love pots, just about any kind. The terracotta in the left hand, a wooden box on, it's like on a wheelbarrow, with a little handle holding up the cute little white miniature rose, and a tree rose that's been triple budded in a pot. Interesting. You can take them out of the pot and plant them in the ground. You're going to have to visualize making the hole bigger than what that pot is. And then the rose coming out of the pot is going to fill the center of it. Or you can go straight from that pot into a container. You have to allow for the size of the rose. There's got to be room for the root development. It's got to have good drainage. A good wide base resists tipping. And for heaven's sake, if you are potting your roses, do not use pot saucers. No, they'll hold water. That's what they're supposed to do. And the bottom of the root mass in your pot is going to rot. So the pots have to be protected from the heat if you're in hot country. I'm not. The soil mix in a pot has to be very light because you're going to be moving that pot around. The watering, pots dry out quickly. You have to water every day a little bit. Don't saturate that soil. Consider the sun and the wind and the humidity where you live, and mulch the top to preserve the moisture and that nice fluffy texture of the soil. You can use shrubblers. You can bury tubing that just underneath. You mulch the top. Yes, roses can be potted. I know the lady that used to live in this house. She dug up most of the lawn and made a trench and has a double row of roses from one side to the sidewalk to the door and from the other side of the sidewalk to the driveway. That's her rose garden. So that's it. Landscaping is all about the flow, the rhythm, the same, and then something different that harmonizes textures and the feel that you get when you look at your landscape. So do we have questions or is everybody asleep?
No, those pictures were amazing. They were inspiring. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the group? Yes, Dave?
Well, she mixes roses with other flowers, which we usually don't do, but the landscaping has all kinds of different flowers in it besides roses.
Jolene, did you have a question?
That's the difference between a landscaped garden and a rose bed. Rose bed only has roses and has to be weeded, whereas a landscape garden has other things in it to keep the soil protected and to keep the soil moist and to prevent weeds from growing and to add color and contrast. It's a pleasing sight.
Thank you.
Other comments? Go ahead.
About the pots, Jolene. So the folks that put those roses in pots, they live in climates where it doesn't get really that frigid in the winter, so they can leave them out all year, correct?
If you don't have a hard freeze, you can. But I used to talk with Clarence Rhodes up in Maine, and at the end of autumn, he already was taking all of his pots into the garage and putting thermal blankets on them. And another guy had dug a pit in the back of his orchard and put all the pots down in the pit and put concrete blankets on the top so that when the freezes came, it wouldn't kill the roses. But see, I live in California.
Jolene, we have here Steve Stein, who grows roses in pots. Steve, maybe you can comment on that as well.
You just have to take precautions. I probably have 60 of them. And they just have to go in the garage. They can be detached, attached, can go in a shed. You just have to try to, by this time of winter, when we have a break in the temperature, try to get moisture on it. So long as it's not frozen solid, or it'll just run off or freeze on top and then could crush your canes. But you just have to make sure it doesn't dry out over winter, even though it's not growing. Evaporation and other things will dry it out. But they will overwinter very well, unless you get a long stretch of like single digits for like 5-6 days in a row, and it really penetrates and gets in deep. But other than that, you can, I grow China roses in Buffalo in pots and leave them in the garage.
Wow, very good. Very good. Yes, exactly.
Large enough container is a big thing too. Gotta have a large enough container.
Other questions? Okay, well, let's get a round of applause for Jolene. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. The picture's been stunning. And are you okay with our posting that on our Facebook page?
Sure, no problem.
All right. Thank you, Jolene. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to speak to you. I enjoy it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Are those people from the Rochester?
Yeah, before we break, we have some announcements. Jim, can you turn the lights up? Fine. And I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, I see. We have Jane. I see Joan is here as well. And who else?